Hi there. Welcome to episode 4 of Ask the Fascia Masters questions. These are questions that are answered from any of the podcasts or any of the social media posts that we offer. And if any questions arise during this, you can put them in the comments below. A question was asked about tennis and golfer's elbow, and this is a really good question because really when we're dealing with any specific area of pain, we really need to look at the entire body to see what are the contributing factors to stress in that area. So when it comes to the elbow, the alignment of the wrist and the hand is really important. So working between the fingers is a really good approach. So pressing between each for 3 minutes as you focus on that proper diaphragmatic breath. And then when you're walking, turning the palms forward so that you're actually in correct anatomical position. This is just one simple thing that you can do to address this, but you can also dive into our $9 sampler program because really it's a full body issue. It's not just about the elbow, it's really about how the forces of the fascia in the entire body pull us out of alignment. Looking at the full body in general is really a key factor in eliminating any areas of pain to actually get to the root of it. A question was asked if red light therapy helps the fascia. I will definitely say that it does, but what I recommend that you do is dive into our Facebook community group, Block Therapy Community, and ask the question there. I see so many people sharing the benefits of adding red light therapy with block therapy. So if you dive in and answer there, you'll have so many people responding to that question. This next question is asked quite regularly, but we're going to address it again because it's such an important question, and obviously people have this coming to the surface of their mind frequently. And the question is all about when is it best to block? In the morning, in the evening, before exercise, after exercise? The answer is yes to all of those things. It's beneficial to block at any time, but you, the individual, needs to decide when it makes the most sense for you. I would recommend trying it at different times. See how your body responds. Ultimately, the goal is that you feel good. So if you feel better blocking before going to bed and it helps you get a more restful sleep, or in the morning it gives you more energy for the day, if you're doing it before exercise to prepare your body, or after exercise to deal with the toxins that arise from exercise, all of these are going to benefit you, and play around with it. And there may be times when it feels better to do it at one time or another depending on what is going on in your life. This is really about self-care and tapping into your intuition. And the more that you do this work, the more intuitive you will become with your journey with block therapy. This is a question I haven't heard before, but I'm so happy it's come in. The question is, how do we address swollen sternalclavicular joints? This is something that we need to understand as being a function of incorrect breathing. When we're breathing through the muscles of the upper chest, this whole area becomes tense, and now these joints aren't articulating correctly, causing the body to send additional blood flow to rebuild the area. The best way to address this is to really tap into proper diaphragmatic breathing. We have so many videos sharing how to do that where you're lying over a rolled up towel. The only contraindication is if you're pregnant or if it doesn't feel right for you. I would approach this breathing exercise while lying on your back, where you can simply place a rolled up towel or anything hard like the block or even a hardcover book right on the belly button, and then with your hands add additional pressure. And then you want to make sure that when you're breathing, the movement is coming from the belly. This will be a really good starting step to help address this, but the reality is this is a process that can take time, and the full body is involved in how we're breathing, even the patterning of the feet. So once again, we do have that $9 sampler program that is a really wonderful starting place for you to see if this work makes sense. And if it does, you can always follow through, get our starter program, and dive into the whole block therapy system. A question came in about the healing crisis and whether or not when doing block therapy, if so much toxins can be released in the body that it causes illness. So first of all, what we're doing with block therapy is we're pulling up which already exists between the layers of fascia so that your body can surface it and then expel it. Now, having said that, depending on how toxic you are, you need to navigate the pace at which you're doing this. Also, we want to be addressing proper cause sites. The calves, feet, hands, and forearms, these are areas that are always needing to be addressed because this is where we are most held and anchored in our negative fascia patterns. So if you are diving into block therapy and you're concerned about this, definitely reach out in our community group or to the many different ways that we offer support so that we can make sure that we're navigating you properly through this. A question also came in about acid reflux. So just a little bit about this. The stomach organ is positioned approximately here, and the majority of us are right-handed. So what happens over time from unconscious posture in breathing is the rib cage starts to collapse into the core. And for those of us that are right-handed, more so on that left side, which impacts the stomach organ as well as all the tubes leading to this organ. So when we have this compression in this area, now we don't have the valve working properly and it can create acid reflux. Working through the entire body is necessary, but really the focus should be on proper diaphragmatic breathing, releasing the adhesions in the rib cage, in the core, and then strengthening this powerful muscle so that we don't come crashing down onto that stomach organ. We do have a $9 sampler program that gives you the opportunity to dive in to this work to see if this makes sense for you. And the very first class that we offer actually addresses this area of the body. If this is something that you're dealing with, give this a try and let us know in the comments below if this helps you. A question came in about block therapy and carpal tunnel. This is another one where I'm really going to advise you to ask this question in the private Facebook community group, Block Therapy Community. We have many of our members that have used block therapy to deal with carpal tunnel and have gotten to the other side of it. What we need to understand is it's not just about the area of concern. This is the issue site, but there's going to be multiple cause sites in the body, which is why when looking at the fascia, we really need to look at what's going on from head to toe. The collapse of the rib cage will be one major area where carpal tunnel is being caused from. When we collapse in the rib cage, it creates internal rotation of the arm. Over time, this creates the issue in the hand. So just addressing the hand won't be enough. But then the rib cage is also driven from what's going on in the patterning of the calves and the feet. It sounds complicated, but when you actually dive into the system, we address the full body to ensure that we're activating the real cause sites causing all of these different issues. So if you do have this and you haven't already started with block therapy, I highly recommend getting the $9 sampler program so that you can start the journey and feel what fascia decompression does for your body. A question came up from one of our members about fibroids in the uterus, and we have, again, so many people that have had positive benefit from using the block therapy system. One of the things we really need to look at is what's going on with the calves and the feet. When the feet fall out of alignment, which is true for all of us, we have one foot that acts kind of like a flat tire, pulling the body away from balance, and then the opposite side anchoring to stop us from tipping over. This creates congestion in the pelvis as the hip joints migrate from what's happening with the feet. That in turn slows blood flow to the organs as well as stops the removal, or at least the full removal, of toxins away. This is what's going to cause fibroids down the road. So when we start looking at the patterning of fascia, what we really want to do is get to the foundation to address this. The 30-day lower body program would be a great first start, as well as working between the toes on a daily basis, as we always recommend. And then in addition, anytime you have extra time in your day, simply blocking that lower belly position, so the block would be right above the pubic bone, you can add as much time and pressure into that space as long as your relaxed breath allows. The more you can add heat and energy into that area, the faster you're going to address those adhesions, blocking flow so that the body can start dumping everything negative out of the body. Do expect as you go through this that you might have increased bleeding as your body is cleaning itself out. That's one of the healing crises, but it's also an indicator that you're doing what you need to do. A question came in about doing this work with a foam roller or other yoga block. I would actually recommend, if you don't want to use the actual tool, the rolled up towel is going to give you better benefit. First of all, the rolled up towel has ability to nicely fit into the contours. It's also denser. It's really the density that's key. So if you're using a foam roller, they're quite porous and they're only going to stay on those surface layers. The goal is that we melt adhesions deep in the layers of fascia. Our goal is to get to the root of the problem at the bone. Those more porous tools aren't going to give you that same benefit, so I would personally recommend the rolled up towel over those other tools. An elderly lady who looks after her husband asked, is it safe to do this practice alone? Because of course she's alone in her home, looking after her husband. So first of all, this is a self-care practice, but it's one that we have to navigate for ourselves. So what I would recommend, start with a rolled up towel and even doing the work on a bed, just to get a sense how this feels in your body. I would also skip every other day in the beginning, just to give yourself time to recover and see how you feel from this practice. That would be my suggestions as a starting point. And of course, if anything arises where there's concern, please reach out to us. We have many areas of support for you. A question came in about anatomical position and if we're actually supposed to be standing with palms forward all the time. Yes, we are. The reality is when we are perfectly aligned, that is how we should be positioned. But nobody's aligned that way because we are constantly being pulled forward by gravity, which creates collapse of the rib cage into the core, which causes internal rotation of the humerus bone, leading to that hand placement changing. It might not be something that in a relaxed way you ever attain fully and completely, but that's the goal. Similar to the placement of the tongue. The tongue should be positioned about a pinky nail distance from the teeth, suctioned up to the roof of the mouth. But for most of us, our tongue isn't positioned properly either because we age in a forward rotational direction. So what we're doing ultimately is compensating for the fact that gravity and unconscious posture and breath over time have caused us to collapse in that forward direction. So whether or not we actually get to that perfection in alignment, not necessary, but that's the goal. We want to strive to get there. And the more you can do that as an exercise, the more natural it will become. An interesting question came in from a gentleman. Why would we bother changing the anterior pelvic tilt? So first of all, I just want to talk a little bit about proper alignment. The goal really is that we have optimal space in the body and we have proper foundations designated to ensure that each cell is correctly positioned. The reason this is important is because if there's space in and around the cell, there's ease of absorption of nutrients in, as well as ease of removal of waste and toxins away. When we start collapsing over time under the force of gravity and unconscious living, we lose that internal space and cells become ultimately starved and dirty. If we're dealing with the pelvis, now the organs of elimination and reproduction aren't given the proper space that they need to function optimally. So this is why it's really important to understand how our body should be positioned and strive to make that the goal. The last question that came in is about uterine prolapse. This is a really important conversation because such a common issue for people. The reality is the alignment of the legs is really the key factor in what's going on with a prolapse. Whenever I'm looking at a body to assess, I always look at first of all what's happening with the feet. There will always be one foot that acts like a flat tire, pulling us away from balance. The opposite side of the body anchors to stop us from tipping over. When the feet are properly aligned, the hip joints are properly aligned. When they start falling out of balance, now the pelvis becomes manipulated. Most often it gets pulled in an anterior twisted position. This creates a ton of compression to the organs in the pelvis. And not only that, also that alignment ends up pulling the rib cage forward and down, creating more internal pressure into the abdominal space. All of this can cause the organs to move down and out of the body. So when dealing with a prolapse, it's really important first and foremost to understand the breath, but to look at the foundation, because as the feet are drawn away, and if that isn't corrected, this problem will only continue to resurface, even if you do have temporary solutions. This completes episode 4 of Ask the Fascia Masters questions. I look forward to being here with you in 2025 so we can move forward in the most healthy, wonderful way.